Okay, well, we're here at 4 o'clock and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. And we are just so excited that you're joining us today. Thank you so much for calling in from Denver and Durango, Fort Collins, maybe even some people from out of state. We're just really excited to be able to bring you this webinar on how to change careers and work remotely, choosing a new career path. As I mentioned, we are excited to be able to provide this webinar to our alumni and the ability to focus on career and professional development for alumni beyond graduation. We will be recording this session today, and we will also post this on our new alumni website afterwards, so you can refer back to this video at any time. This presentation is brought to you by the Alumni Engagement Office. I am Krista Knott. I am the Director of Alumni Engagement. On this call too, we have Ian Fullenwider, the Alumni Engagement Officer. And we also, our main presenter is through FlexJob and Doug, and I will get to Doug in just a minute, but let me tell you all a little bit about FlexJobs because they are wonderful. FlexJobs is the #1 job site to find remote, work from home, and flexible job opportunities since 2007. FlexJobs has helped millions in their job search. Remote and work from home jobs are the new normal. If you want a job that works with this new normal, FlexJobs is here for you. As of today, too, we are offering all alumni 30% off subscriptions to FlexJobs remote and online job board. We will put the discount code in the chat in just a second, and the discount code will be good until November 15th. We will see a presentation from FlexJobs for about 30 minutes, then 15 minutes for Q&A. To follow, and then we will end the session roughly about 4:45 or so Mountain Daylight Time. Our presenter from FlexJobs for this webinar today is Doug Hubertowski. Doug is a career coach at FlexJobs and has had extensive industry insight with previous experiences as a national recruiter, hiring manager, and staffing firm manager. So we are in good hands today. Doug, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Very much so. Great. Well, thanks for that great introduction, Krista. I really appreciate it. And let me just say, we are just as thrilled to be with you folks as well today. Really appreciate having these opportunities to connect with different folks and let them know a little bit about who we are, but more importantly, just try to give some good insight and some good advice to help people along in their career aspirations. So on that note, let's get started here today. Just want to welcome everyone from our standpoint at FlexJobs. What we're going to be talking about today, as Krista said, is how to change careers and work remotely. The idea of choosing a new career path. Like Krista said, my name is Doug. I'm one of the career coaches, and we'll show you a picture of all of our smiling faces here in just a moment. But I'm just one of several career coaches for FlexJobs in our coaching division, and so we've been doing this for a couple of years now. We started our coaching division, and so it's really grown really fast, as you might imagine, with the emphasis on remote work and just some of the growth in that area. Before we begin, just a couple of quick housekeeping things that I want to touch on. As you know, Krista had mentioned, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of this time. I'm going to ask you, if you would be so kind, if you've got a question as I'm presenting some of this, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box rather than the chat area, if you would. If you need to communicate with Krista, of course, go into the chat area, and she can respond to some of those things if need be. But as far as the questions for the end of our presentation, if you would put those in the Q&A box, that would be really helpful. Additionally, we're going to be going through a number of resources that we've got here today. FlexJobs has just got a number of really good resources that we can share, as well as some things that are kind of outside of FlexJobs, and they'll come up throughout the presentation. I just want to let you know that I will actually be sending an email with the links to those resources to Krista as soon as we're done with the webinar today. And she can then go ahead and forward those out, or disperse those however seems best to her. So with all of that said, let's get started. So here's kind of a list of the general topics that we're going to be covering today. We'll spend a good share of our time in this first bullet, and that is the key steps to choosing a career, a new career. The second piece, of course, common remote career fields and industries. We'll touch on that a little bit because there's oftentimes questions about, what types of careers can I really do in a remote space? And of course, given this last year and some of the things that have unfolded, we've seen a lot of things that we really didn't anticipate to be remote, opening up that possibility. And so that is definitely, that space is growing. Third thing is we're going to just touch on a couple of additional resources to help you kind of further explore some of the ideas that we'll talk about today. So moving on a little bit, here's just a little bit about us to get you familiar with us. Krista did a great job of kind of bringing that intro in. You'll see here, this group of 9 is our remote coaching team at FlexJobs. There is 9 of us all together, and as you'll notice, I am the only man, so I'm a little bit outnumbered on the team. But we have got like really an exceptional team. I can say this with all confidence. These are some of the best people that I have ever worked with. But FlexJobs is a job service that really specializes in both remote and flexible jobs. As Krista said, we've been around since about 2007, so we are, about 13 to 14 years old right now, and we've grown really, really quickly. In that time, we've helped about 4.5 million job seekers, and additionally, we have screened more than 55,000 companies, and I'll explain kind of what that means. We are actually a membership site. So we are kind of the opposite of what a typical job board is. Oftentimes, and both have their place, both are very good. But a typical job board, what ends up happening is a company will come and they will pay a fee to place their ad for their position on that job board. As FlexJobs, as a membership site, we're a bit different. We do have a fee for the members, but what we do is we actually vet each and every position before it's posted on our site. So it's actually gone through 2 to 3 reviews every time before a job gets posted on our site to make sure that it's a valid position. We want to be very careful that we don't have, scams and spammy things on our website. So we're real careful about that. Last but not least, there are a lot of really good free and public parts of our website. And so just want to encourage you to go ahead and check those out. We'll talk a little bit about those in more detail as we go on, some of the resources, but even not being a member, there are some good information and good resources that you can access without a membership. So the key steps to choosing a new career, this is kind of where we're going to start and kind of chat about a few things. Now, as we get started, often, here's the thing. One thing that I've learned over the years with coaching and whatnot is there's kind of a propensity in us to really want to know what's the next step. Uncertainty and living within the question marks can be challenging, and believe me, I get that. I've experienced that myself too. But some things, especially with things such as this, a career change, a major shift in life, we just really need to kind of take it one step at a time, one day at a time. I just want to encourage you to be patient with yourself and patient with the process. Focus on each step. Try not to get too far ahead of yourself. As the saying goes, don't put the cart in front of the horse. Give yourself a little bit of time. Give yourself a little bit of space. Be patient with yourself. If you follow through with some of the steps that we're talking about now, I think that some light bulbs may come on, and just some ideas really may generate, and I believe you will find some answers as you move on. So step number 1, getting to know your motivations. So often in coaching, what we find is there will be people that will say, what we do as coaches is we actually send out a questionnaire before we start a coaching session with a client. And oftentimes we'll get that questionnaire back. And one of the first questions will be, tell me what kind of job I should do. Sometimes people have been trying to figure this out for so long with, without really a system, or, they feel a little bit overwhelmed, and they'll say, just tell me what kind of job I can do, or what should I do? And while we as coaches can guide people into a decision, we can give them some pointers and some tips. It's really important that we all do our own exploration. And really the reason for that is it really helps to give and develop a deeper understanding of what your professional wants and needs are. I mean, you learn a lot as you really go through that process and understand what jobs may or may not fit you very well. The system that we're going to walk through here as we go through this presentation is something that we call a 4-step system, and it is something that's available on our website. And so, as stated in the previous slide that we looked at, breaking the process down is really important. It helps, and it can be really helpful. And this step right now of, kind of uncovering your motivations really can be the longest or the biggest phase when you're choosing a new career. It's a process of self-assessment. It's a lot of research and evaluation to kind of uncover some of these things. So let's start with this. The first question I think that we really need to ask ourselves is, do I need a new career, or do I just need a new job? And let me explain that question a little bit. Recently, I was coaching a woman who was just in mid-level of her career. She was a very sharp individual, smart, had some great career trajectory. She was moving up the ladder, doing really well. And her last position was in management. And in her questionnaire, she stated, "All I know is I don't want to manage anymore. I'm done with management." And so we began to chat about that. And I said, I kind of, asked her some questions, tell me why. What is it about management that you really don't like? And as we kind of chatted and got a little deeper in it, what it really ended up being was the environment and some of the dysfunction in the environment where she was working was influencing her feelings and her position on leadership. This was her first leadership position where she was in management for the last year or two. And really, she had a lot of the qualities to do management well, perhaps in a different environment. And so that question is important. Sometimes we need to ask the question, is it really that I need a new career? Do I really not like what I'm doing? Or is it the environment, or maybe some of the environments that I've been in that has kind of skewed how I feel about this particular role? So perhaps maybe you're in a management role and you've said, you know what, I've had enough with management. I don't want to do this anymore. But perhaps there's a different environment where management is done differently, and you've got more liberty to make some of those changes where you really would love it. So just thinking about that as we get started. The next thing is, what do you want work to feel like? What kind of a feeling do you want to get as you're working? What do you hope that fulfills in you? What kind of things are you looking for? Something that validates some skills in you, that makes you feel like you're walking away and you're fulfilling a purpose. What types of things are you really wanting to feel as you are in your job? And then the next thing, are you trying to get away from something in your job? And that's a really valid question. At times we can actually be, and I'll just be candid with this, we can be kind of running away from one position rather than running to something else. And what can that really mean? Well, I tell you what, many years ago, someone told me, they said, Doug, the way you leave one place is the same way that you arrive at the next. So when we leave a place and we arrive, if something hasn't shifted and we haven't purposefully been running to rather than running away, we kind of bring some of those same things with us. And oftentimes we can make a bad decision in the process. What we don't want to do is settle for something that we, kind of on the spot, that really puts us back in the same position that we came out of. And, some of the same frustrations or some of the same things that we were trying to leave. So when I'm in a place, I want to say, hey, am I just running from this, or have I found something that is so intriguing to me that looks like it's really going to fulfill something in me, that I'm actually running to that. And that's a much better motivator in the long run. So the next question, what do I want more in my work? What types of things am I looking for? Why do I want to work remotely? Those are good questions to ask ourselves. Am I wanting to work remotely just because, I'm uncomfortable sitting in this restrictive office? I'd like some more liberty and freedom to move about. Or is there something, say, a family member that you need to care of? Or is there small children? Those things will impact what types of remote work, or perhaps even what schedules. Do I need to not only work remote, but do I need to be flexible? Do I need to be able to put in 2 hours, step away for an hour to care for, an elderly family member, and then back? Those things are good to keep in mind and to consider. The other things too, what are you really good at? This is a great question to ask yourself. Oftentimes I ask people, what do other people tell you that you are really good at? And I sometimes I think that we don't really consider that, or oftentimes people will say, "Boy, you did a really good job at that," and we'll say, "Hey, thank you," and we'll kind of forget about that. But oftentimes, other people are really a really good mirror for us. They really reflect back to us the things that we're really good at. So maybe take some time, think about what have other people said you're good at. The other thing as well that's really important is, what do you feel confident in? So what types of tasks or things, even if it's not something that you've done for a salaried or an hourly wage, but there may be some things where you do that and you just feel like, boy, I can knock it out of the park every time I do this. Or this really fulfills me. This is something I love to do. Perhaps you're in a customer service role, but every time you sit down to write a blog, you just come alive and you feel very confident in that. Those are some really good indicators of things that you might want to consider. So step one, getting to know your motivations continued. I'm sorry, we're continuing here, but knowing what you don't want to do sometimes can be a really powerful indicator. Sometimes you need to kind of take what you don't want to do and just flip that. If you've got something where you're in a job where it's just boring and it's uninteresting and it doesn't fulfill you and there's no purpose in it, that means perhaps I need to find something that's much more exciting. Maybe I need to align myself with a company or an organization that aligns with my values. Maybe I have a value on something, or I have a passion to make a difference in a certain area, and that might be what I need to look at. Or perhaps I'm in a career that's just highly inflexible, it's rigid, and maybe that's not what I want. Maybe I need to flip that and find something that's very flexible. So step number 2, make a list of possibilities. Now, we call this the throwing spaghetti against the wall stage, because that's really kind of what it comes down to. What this stage really is to take a lot of these good ideas and bad ideas and ideas that don't really seem to make sense, and whatever comes to you, different parts, different ideas, and just begin to throw them against the wall. In other words, begin to write them down and make a list of these things. We encourage you to kind of look at some different lists of jobs, and we'll send these resources to you. As you can see on your screen, there's a few of them listed. Career One Stop actually has several good resources that we will reference here and that we'll send you resources on, but they have a list of the fastest growing careers. It's really good to just begin to look at some of these and some of these resources to begin to develop lists. What jobs do you find interesting? Of course, once again, what do others say that you're good at? Looking at FlexJob's 20 most popular work from home jobs in titles, that's a great article. The other one too is FlexJob's 15 highest growth career fields during COVID. And these are lists that we actually work with our own resources and the positions that we're working with. And we create these lists, and actually we do update those as well. So they are fresh and current in many aspects. The other things that I would encourage you to do is to take some skills assessments, and perhaps some assessments of your interests, and even a personality assessment, which is this one that is in the link here is very similar to like a Myers-Briggs type of thing. But sometimes these resources can really begin to paint a picture. Oftentimes I've taken, some of these tests and like an interest test, and it will ask me some questions, do you like doing this, or would you rather do this or that? And at the end of them, they will present a number of ideas or possibilities. And oftentimes they'll present things that, boy, I would have never thought that about myself. That's not something that would have been in my wheelhouse to think about, but it can oftentimes just bring up some ideas to think about, some things to consider. And once again, you throw that spaghetti at the wall, you add it to your list. So, then of course, asking, what do all these jobs that I'm interested in have in common? What's the common thread? They can, help to show us, what you do want to do in a new job versus what you don't really want to do. Then you ask yourself the questions, how would I rank them? Which one out of these jobs seems to really rise to the top? What are my top 5? And why do I like each of these jobs? What is it about them? And so this is really a time of exploration and, once again, making those lists. Then step 3 is researching your ideas. So what we really want to encourage you to do now is to take time and research these ideas. So now you've got a list of, say, 5 different jobs. Maybe there's some things that you have had some overlap in your past work history. Maybe they are things that are, brand new to you and you hadn't thought about. It's a good idea to take some time and to really research these jobs and find out, more of what you can about them, how they tick, what's new about them, what's different about them, what's trending about those jobs. One way for free to start, of course, is YouTube. YouTube, as we all know, is a huge warehouse of a lot of really good free information. But just encourage you to start there. If you find a job title that you really like, maybe look up a day in the life of that particular job title and see what you might find, what might come up. And oftentimes people will shoot videos of themselves going through their day. If you want to become a software developer, a day in the life of a software developer or whatnot, you might find some really good resources that you can use to study about that. We're also going to include this one-stop shop occupational profiles link. That's really good to read content and watch videos on other jobs. You can go ahead and search on there by keyword to find different jobs. And then the other thing too is read job listings to learn more about what those jobs require in their roles. Oftentimes when people come to me and they'll ask me, gee, how should I know what to train on? Well, these job listings or job postings are great insights into what they're really after and what you might want to be learning. They can oftentimes point to technologies that are required. And if they do, if there's, let's just say you're going to be doing some webinars like this, they're going to state on there that they use, Zoom or GoToWebinar or whatnot. And you can go and look and see what it looks like to work within some of these technologies or these different roles and get a feel for what that's going to be like versus just going ahead and starting to apply. And the next part of this researching your ideas is, and this is a strong encouragement. If you do not have a LinkedIn account, boy, I really highly encourage you to go out and get yourself a LinkedIn account. LinkedIn is such a great resource for so many different things. You can go into LinkedIn and look at the profiles of people that are doing jobs just like this. Oftentimes what I encourage people to do is, for example, let's just say you're interested in a particular job at a particular company. You find this company that's interesting to you. They've got a customer service role that you think, I'd really like to try that. Well, oftentimes what happens is companies will have a job description. And how many of us know that our job description is sometimes different than the way we would describe our day-to-day activity at our job? So what you can do is, let's just say, ABC company is looking to hire customer service representatives, and you're interested in that, and you go to ABC's LinkedIn page, and then at the top, at the right-hand side, you will see a link to go to all of the people that work there, their profiles. We'll go and look through there and start to find some of the people that are doing customer service. Look how they describe their job. Not necessarily maybe the job description, but look how they describe their job. Not only is this good insight, but when you go to craft your resume, these are good things to tailor into your resume and seed into there these things that you know actually happen there, because it helps to identify with that hiring manager. The other things you might want to consider, and we'll send you a link to a resource that we've got on this, is looking for and asking for informational interviews. Now, what these are really approaching somebody in the industry, and we have seen great results with this when people implement this into their job search. But going to people in the industry that you're interested in and reaching out to them either over LinkedIn or an email, or if you've got their number, somehow try to reach out to them and say, hey, could I just borrow 10, 15, maybe a half hour of your time to just ask you some questions and find out what a typical day is like for them in their job. Maybe about the things that they love about their job, the things that they dislike about their job, really what they do in a day, and really some of the things that they wish they would have known before they took that job. You know, oftentimes jobs can look one way. Once we get in it, we find out, boy, I wish I would have known this. Like, this is really good, or this is something I should have considered. But taking some time to try to line up some informational interviews with some people in that industry or in that role can be very, very helpful to give you some more insight. So our last and fourth step here in this process is to narrow your list of ideas. And so this is really an evaluation step. So you're going to take this time and you're going to look at these jobs and say, does this job or career really move me away from the things I'm trying to get away from? And does it move me toward the things that I want to do? What am I gaining if I move from this particular type of a role to that particular type of a role? Am I getting away from the things that I don't want, and am I getting towards the things that I do want to do? Do you have the education and the background needed for this career? You know, and if not, are you willing and able to invest the time and the money to obtain it? So what's an example of that? Well, for example, not only the education, and that's pretty obvious. Perhaps you take some Udemy courses or some Coursera, or maybe you're in a position where you can actually go back to college. But I've had people that have asked me, for example, getting into IT. Maybe you want to get into IT and you're trying to, break into that area, and you don't have a whole lot of education, but you've worked a lot on your own, but you don't have that experience. Perhaps go to some nonprofits and volunteer your time on a Saturday morning. Nonprofits are always looking for people who have got the talent and the skills to help them when they're working on a slim budget. So maybe you go in and you say, hey, I can help you load that software or install that new computer. And these are ways to be able to begin to build your skill set and build your resume with some tangible experience. The next question, does this career offer the flexible arrangements that you want and need? Does the career look really good? Like, I really like the job, but boy, it's not really flexible. Is that a deal breaker for you? Is that important? Or do you need to, keep looking someplace else? Or could you work with that? Salary requirements. Is a salary really meeting what you need out of this particular position? I would encourage you to go and do some research with either glassdoor.com or salaries.com. Some of these resources can be really good to begin to research, find out what some of these companies are paying. If this position pays $40,000 and you need to make $60,000 a year, that's something you'll need to consider. Is that a trade-off you're willing to make? If you need to make 60 and that position pays 80, then it's a great trade-off, right? Now you're moving in the right direction. What does your gut say about this particular move? And sometimes these are really good indicators. My gut says, boy, I think I would come alive in this. This would be wonderful. I think this would be just a great position for me. Or I've got some check marks. Maybe I just need to do a little more research. So after all of this, which jobs and careers kind of seem to remain on your list? What raised to the top? I'll offer this too as one more bit of advice. And I know we're kind of taking a little bit longer on the presentation here, but some of this is really important. Oftentimes people will ask me too, they'll say, Doug, I see these positions that I really love, but there's, out of the 10 things that they require, I only have 7 or 8, and I'm missing a couple of those. Should I apply? Absolutely. The answer is absolutely. Typically, if you meet about 60 to 70% of the qualifications in a job description, I would say go ahead and apply. What we don't often consider is that a lot of job descriptions are really, and I say this with all due respect, some of them are wish lists. They'll be asking for just if they could find their perfect candidate that had everything on this list, they would be overjoyed. But the reality is oftentimes they're not going to find everything. So if a hiring manager pulls up your resume and they find that you match, 8 out of 10, 7 or 8 out of 10, you don't have a couple of the things, but boy, some of the things that you have really intrigue them. They very well may just give you an interview. So moving on. So the next question, so our whole idea is changing careers and working remotely. The next question really is, can your ideas or the jobs that you are looking at be done remotely? So exploring that a little bit, I think it's time to kind of search some of those things, to take some time, and you can search FlexJobs even if you are not a member. You can search for positions there. Now, you won't be able to access the employer or their information, but you'll be able to see the types of jobs and some brief descriptions about them. So take some time and search FlexJobs and see if the types of jobs you want to do are actually available in remote. See if there are other remote job listings. Consider doing different searches too. Now, this is a tip and a trick that we oftentimes recommend for people to do, and that is to begin to not only search by titles, but by functions and job, skills and things of that nature. Now, why is that? Well, what used to be called an IT guy or an IT gal is now sometimes a technical guru. What used to be an HR, consultant or HR manager is now, and literally we've seen happiness consultant or people and culture, consultant. So job titles change, but oftentimes when you search by soft skills or transferable skills, or you search by, work skills like team management or project management or some of these sorts of things, or even hard skills, maybe the certain softwares that you want to use or some of those things, what you'll end up doing is you'll begin to pull up job possibilities that you might not have thought about if you were just searching by the title of the job itself. So that kind of broadens that scope just a little bit. Next, here is a list of the top career fields for the most remote jobs. Now, this list shows most of the top career fields and things that we see from our posting data at FlexJobs. Now, right now, these are some fields that have a lot of the most open and flexible posts. We do look at this, like I said, regularly, and we update these, but over time, a lot of these fields seem to really hold the hot top spots for us at FlexJobs. So as you see there, medical and health and HR recruiting and sales, IT, data science, customer service, writing, research. So those are some of the top ones that we see. And here are a couple more resources for exploration, that we'll offer some resources for exploration, and then we'll begin to wrap things up. So here is a link that we will actually provide to you. And this is the link to our 4-step system blog that we've got at FlexJobs. And really what we've been talking about here is kind of an outline of this particular 4-step system. We have on many occasions offered this to people that are saying, what should I do? I don't know what to do. I just can't quite seem to get focused on what direction I want to pursue with my career. But this system really, if you kind of work through it and you take the time and you think through it and you do your research and you do your study, we've had many times where people have come back and said, I've struggled to find an answer or some direction, but this has really helped me in finding that direction. Additionally, what we're going to be doing is sending you this link to this video here. And what this is it's a video on career change and transition. This was actually originally done by Bree Reynolds, and she is actually my manager, and she's the career development manager, and she's also a coach with FlexJobs. She's been doing this for a number of years. I think she's actually been with FlexJobs over 10 years now. And so she's been there for a long time, really has a great grasp on this, but Bree actually did the presentation within this one. So we'll send you a link to access this video as well, and that should be a good source of some information. So as we wrap up the presentation portion, we're gonna just kind of recap some of these action steps. So these are really just, what we talked about earlier, but kind of putting it into context in bullets. The first thing you wanna do is take some time to get to know your motivations. What are you really after in a job? The second is that throw the spaghetti at the wall stage of making a list of all your possibilities, good, bad, and otherwise, just so you can begin to look through it, see some continuity, some things where they may fit together. The third thing is going to be researching and really making a commitment to researching those possibilities to find out what might be a fit, then narrowing your list. And once you have all of that in place, then you've got some focus for your job search. And let me say this, focus in a job search is crucial. If I really don't know what I'm after, I'm likely going to spend a lot of time doing some unproductive tasks in my job search. And if I've seen anything in job search, when I don't have I've seen this, when I don't have a focus and I'm spending a lot of time not getting results, it really leads to frustration. And oftentimes we can just feel like giving up at that point. I've talked to so many people that have been searching and they said, I've put in 100 resumes, and I really don't know what I'm after. But then once you begin to get focused and you target your resume and you tailor that resume to each job and you get that narrowed down, job search can become more fruitful and more productive and a whole lot less frustrating in the process. So, all right, we're going to, in just a moment, we're going to open it up for some questions, but I do want to encourage you for even more tips and tricks and resources. I recommend just going to FlexJobs. Go to www.flexjobs.com. You see it right here. If you add /blog, that will take you to just a vast amount of free articles, resources, webinars, videos that are open to both members and non-members. So just go ahead and, like I said, even if you don't sign up for a membership or anything of that nature, there's some great resources on there for even non-members. So take advantage of those. So before we go into the Q&A portion, I'm going to turn this back over to Krista, and she's got just a couple of announcements and some things she wants to share, and then we'll dig into a few questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug. This was a really informative session. There were a lot of tips in there that I'd never thought of before, so we hope that our alumni got a lot out of this too. Good. And as Doug mentioned, we will get this information and I will email this out to all of our attendees likely tomorrow. So keep an eye on the inbox for these resources that Doug has mentioned today. I also want to mention too that we are providing free of charge to all alumni cover letter reviews, resume reviews through our office, which is now really a subsidiary of our career services. So reach out. I will, in the chat, put our career services website where you can make an appointment with either Ian or myself or someone from the career services side. But again, we really want to make sure that we are getting you into the job that you're happy with. The resources that Doug provided is a really great step to knowing what direction you want to take it. And then once you find the job that you want to apply, come to us and let us review your resume, give you some tips and tricks from the experts on that side too. So again, that's all totally free. We're just glad that you're utilizing your resources. So with that, Doug, I will turn it back over to you.
Super. You know, if I could just reiterate something that you just said, Krista, and encourage your people, if you have got a resource like that, like Krista is offering to help with some of this review and resume, am I understanding that correctly? You're going to
Yes.
review
Yes.
their resumes and help them. Oh boy, that is so valuable. If they are offering that, boy, take them up on it. Oftentimes, I can tell you this: I have people that will come to me and about their resumes, and they'll say, I've been looking at this thing for a month, and I just can't seem to make any sense out of it. And I'll tell you this: resume writers, oftentimes the last resume we want to write is our own. That is the hardest resume oftentimes to write, because it's really hard sometimes to see the forest for the trees. We can get lost in our own experience and all of that sort of thing very easy. And when you can have a professional like Krista take a look at it, or some of these other people that at Fort Lewis, and take a look at it and give you some insight, sometimes that is incredibly valuable to have another set of eyes just look at your resume. So if they're offering that, boy, my encouragement, if I was you, I'd take them up on it right away. I would definitely
Thanks for that
do that.
endorsement.
Yeah, I strongly agree. Yeah, you are very welcome for it, and it's not hard to endorse. I really agree with that. So right now we just have one question in the Q&A box here right now. If you've got one that you'd like to throw in there real quickly, we'll try to get to that too. But this is actually a really, really good question. So allow me to, there's a number of things about this. Let me read the question, and then I'll kind of tag on a few things. Number one, the question is this: how do I showcase transferable skills? I'm almost 60 and have done a lot of different things that don't quite meld together. This is a great question, and I'm going to kind of expand on this since we've got a little time without any other questions in there right now. Number one, the first thing that you want to consider is that if you've got a lot of different skills and you've done a number of different things, what you're going to want to do is realize that each and every focus that you have, actually my question just disappeared there, but
I'm sorry, it's now under answered.
No, that's okay. That's totally fine, not a problem. But the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you understand that each and every focus that you've got, even if they're very similar, let's say you've done project management, but you've also done team development, and they may have some overlap because teams are working on the project. Those can actually be very different resumes. And so what you're going to want to do is make sure that you're developing several resumes that target you in those general directions. That's the first thing. So if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 directions, make sure that you've developed targeted resumes in those directions. The next thing that you want to do is each and every time you're going to want to tailor that. So when we talk about transferable skills, the transferable skills for a project manager, and I'm not sure what your experience was in that question, but I'm just going to use these as examples. Your transferable skills for project manager and maybe team development might be 2 different things. Team development might be coaching, and it might be mentoring, and it may be teaching and training and developing training materials, and all of that sort of thing, scheduling. And the project management might be developing processes and procedures. And so maybe you've done all of that, but they're different resumes. So when you bring in your transferable skills, what you want to do is think about how these transferable skills that you've got are applicable to that particular role that you are targeting. Now, here's why this is really important, is that about 60 to 70% of hiring managers and recruiters now use a tool called ATS, or Applicant Tracking Systems. Some of you may be familiar with this, but it is a keyword-driven system that actually a majority of employers and recruiters use. What it is they will take keywords from their job description, and they will upload those into their ATS system. When your resume gets uploaded to apply for that job, it will go into this ATS system, if that ATS system does not match a certain percentage of words for you in comparison to that job, what ends up happening is your resume gets kicked out before a human being ever sees it. Now, that can be really frustrating, but the reason I say it's targeting is because you want that resume to communicate you in a way that matches that focus. But then what you're going to do is you're going to pull out keywords from that job description, and you're going to incorporate them into your key skills section in your summary at the top of your resume to make sure that you match enough keywords to get past the ATS and then have a job or hiring manager look at you for that job. So hopefully that answers that question in a way. Okay, let's see here. I am 32-year-old female, and I've been self-employed the past 9 years as an athletic coach. I would like to move towards more income, steady career within the next year as my children reach school age. Our mid-30s too late for our mid-30s too late. Okay, for a complete career change when I have never been employed in a absolutely not. No, I think mid-30s is not too late whatsoever. I think what you can certainly do when you're approaching this is you are going to want to step back and look at some of the things that you've done as an athletic coach. Oftentimes people will think, in terms of, okay, I've been an athletic coach and, I've really focused on athletics. Well, you've also been quite a leader if you've been a coach. You've also done scheduling. You've done, management in many ways. I'm sure you've probably written curriculum and systems and processes and a number of different things that may not sound like an athletic coach, but you've done that. And so what you want to do if you're going to move, say, into a traditional office setting, as your question indicates, is begin to think of those things that would be applicable. Also think in terms of you're probably working maybe with things like Microsoft Word and Excel, keeping schedules on an Excel spreadsheet. Perhaps you've been communicating with team members through Slack and things of that nature. Those are all really good skills. And what you're going to want to do is then when you write your resume, when you go into the skill sets of your resume under that job that you've done, even though it has been, say, self-employed, as you say, it's still valid, tangible experience. You're going to want to write that in such a way that helps to transition, not with such a heavy focus on the athletic coach. That may be your title, but the skills that you've done, you're going to want to accentuate and bring out those other things that you've done that would add to your qualifications and lend to your experience in a traditional office setting. So absolutely, you are by no means too late to make a career change in your mid-30s. We see it all the time, and so I wouldn't worry about that one bit. Absolutely, tailor your resume, record those transferable skills, get your resume ready in that direction, and I think you're definitely can have some success. We've got time we'll take one more question here. We've got one on the screen. It says, hi, what is a good way to identify hard and soft skills besides the obvious ones? Types 55 words per minute. That would be, I'm assuming, the obvious ones that you're talking about. My background is in cost accounting and administrative support. Okay, so what I would suggest in something like this is, number one, you're going to have your summary at the top. What I would suggest that you do with that to identify your hard skills and soft skills is to have a paragraph at the top that really captures your qualifications. A accomplished and conscientious, whatever it is you're applying to, whether that be a cost accountant or an administrative support position, and then begin to list some of those things in that paragraph that you have done and that you bring both hard and soft skills. Below that, what I really encourage people to do is then think back. Sometimes this can be a little bit challenging when you're in accounting or administrative support, because it's easier to think of impact and accomplishments if you're a salesperson, right? But if you're doing some of these other things, I don't really have hard facts or, hard numbers like increased sales by 25%. But what you can do is think about impact that you've had as far as processes that you've developed or perhaps you saved the company X amount of money because you instituted or implemented a new procedure, something of that nature. If you can bring these impacts and a bullet or two of impact up into your summary section as well, along with these key skills that we've been talking about. And then what I would also do for your hard skills is I would incorporate a technology section with a couple of lines for that. Number one, I would include a technology section of, say, Office and perhaps productivity tools. And within there, you're going to list things like, if you've had experience with Quicken or QuickBooks, or I should say QuickBooks, or different accounting software, or Office, a Microsoft Office and Excel. And then when you're talking about, this is another thing that's very important for all of us to be concerned with when we're applying for remote positions, but also listing your remote collaborative tools, such as Zoom, like we're using right now, or Slack, or GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, Google Docs, Dropbox, Google Drive, all of those sorts of tools that you would use online in technology to communicate. Those are really important to include as well, to communicate that you've got the technology skills to be able to work in a remote or virtual position as well. So, okay, hopefully that answered that question for you. Thank you very much for the questions. Those have been some really good questions. Nice and thought-provoking. Good. Anything else from you on your end, Krista or Ian?
Nothing on my end, but I realized that I had not put in the Career Services website. So I'm adding that now, and that's where people will go to schedule appointments in Handshake for any cover letter review and resume reviews.
Wonderful.
Right. Yeah, and just to add quickly, the question that Ali asked earlier about career transitions and not being sure about relevant skills, that's exactly what Krista and I offer as career services professionals, where there's so many resources online. You can spend a couple of hours looking at resume and interview skills and tricks and resources and all that stuff, but you're still not going to get the complete picture. Working with somebody who is in career services, they help you identify what skills you're not thinking of that you should be putting on your resume, and how you should showcase those, how you should talk about them in an interview. And that's specifically what Krista and I are trained to work on you with.
Wonderful. Once again, take them up on it. That is a great offer to have them do that for you. I think that's an invaluable resource. Very much so. Good. Good. Well, it has been just an absolute pleasure to be with you folks today and share a little bit about career change and transition and a bit about remote work and answer some of your questions. So this has been fun. What a pleasure. Appreciate the invitation, Krista. It's been an honor. Yeah, hopefully this has been helpful for you and your folks.
The pleasure is all ours, Doug. Thank you so much again for being here today. And to all of our attendees, again, be on the lookout tomorrow for an email follow-up with a lot of the resources that Doug went through today. So thank you again for attending. This means so much to us. We hope you have a good afternoon and evening.
Super. Bye now, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.